People are weird. You know this. You probably deal with a lot of weird people on a daily basis. But you don't think you're weird, no. You think you're totally normal, that the way you work is the norm, and that you're just the average human being. People are often surprised, even frustrated, when someone is different than them, or how they expect them to be. But everyone is different. No one is quite the same. Every human brain crafted so intricately, us humans have yet to fully understand it. Now we are all aware of this, so why are we always so sure of how people should act, and then judge those who don't conform to these invisible standards? Now these expectations are not inherently wrong or bad. Humanity does need some form of structure for society to be able to function effectively. Go figure. But with all things, there needs to be a balance, and we biased creatures usually sway over to the side of overly strict social norms. In life, there is always a minority and a majority, with the majority of society usually dictating the rules and standards of what is to be expected of all people. While this makes sense logically speaking, it overlooks the fact that these minorities are people too, and deserve to have a voice in the world we live in. We see this on a lot of different levels, but one of which that is particularly interesting is neurodivergent individuals. Now hold up a second, what is neurodivergent? Well, according to Michaela Jacobson's literature review, a neurodivergent or ND individual is someone whose brain is wired differently than most others. Some common neurodivergencies, aka differences in the brain, include but are not limited to autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and Down syndrome. In an infographic by the artist Ottball, it shows that on the other side of neurodivergent is neurotypical, which refers to someone who does not display characteristics of divergent brain patterns, which, essentially, means that they have been deemed normal by society. Now, this doesn't mean that neurotypical people, or NT for short, are different and unique in their own ways. As previously established, no two brains are exactly alike. But it does mean that they may be confused or put off by neurodivergent tendencies, such as having trouble making eye contact, sensory sensitivities, or not conforming to traditional social expectations. In an article by the Harvard Business Review, J.D. Goulet shares the trouble she faced trying to keep her job whilst also trying to acquire her needed accommodations. I was fired within 4 months when my doctor didn't submit additional documentation on time to prove my need for accommodation. My mental health deteriorated, having internalized the repeated message that I was incapable and had no value to employers. I would go on to spend the next few years subsisting on a meager Social Security disability income. The circumstances caused me to question whether life was even worth living. This is why it's important to educate yourself about all types of people, how everyone is different, and what kind of struggles we all have, so you can ensure that at least in your little corner of life, everyone gets a fair shot. Unfortunately, as seen in an article by Ludmila N. Pryslova, most people are not educated on these matters, and more often than not, discriminate against neurodivergent people because of their differences. Did you know that autistic professionals can be up to 140% more productive than the typical employee when properly matched up to jobs? Still, in the UK, the unemployment rate for autistic people is as high as 78%. In the US, that number jumps to 85%. A 2020 report on UK employers shed some light on these numbers, as 50% of managers surveyed admitted they would not hire neurodivergent candidates. People are literally admitting that they discriminate against neurodivergent individuals, and that shows just how biased some people are to openly admit their intolerance for neurodiversity. In an interview with the mother of a child with autism, she talked about her experience trying to secure accommodation for her son in school. What kind of accommodations does Erin have for school or other activities?
Erin has an IEP for school since 4th grade, a behavior IEP, as well as an educational IEP. English, history, social studies, geography, and other creative subjects are harder for Erin, so his teachers allow him to dictate his ideas outlined in his IEP and other accommodations as needed, like a peer tutor. Bus transportation to and from school is also accommodation.
Can you explain the process of securing these accommodations?
Process for getting accommodations, Erin went through 5 months of intense observation at a place in Centerville called Matt's Place. We had many people on Erin's team, a doctor, a therapist, a social worker, teacher, and others to help us figure out the extent of Erin's disabilities. They were able to conclude that he had autism and could qualify for services.
Has it been harder to ensure Erin got the same opportunities as his peers? If so, how?
Yes, the eligibility process for an IEP was rather difficult. He is high-functioning autistic, so Aaron doesn't look any different. He just processes things differently, so you never know what will trigger him or cause a meltdown. When Aaron would melt down, people thought he was misbehaving rather than just having a sensory overload. Fortunately, now that he is older, he has learned to express his difficulties more appropriately.
Have you observed Aaron being judged unfairly because of his differences?
Aaron has his quirks that make him different, like repeating the same silly word over and over. He goes through word phases of hamburger, turtles, donut, and nonsense words like merp and tort. I think the biggest thing is people expect him to act or behave normal because he doesn't necessarily look any different and judge him when he does have quirky behavior.
What has been the most challenging part about helping Aaron throughout life in school?
Getting Aaron eligible for special education services was the most challenging part of helping Aaron. Also, understanding his meltdowns and that he processes things differently than his brothers. Realizing that I'm a mother of an autistic special ed kid and accepting services for him is also a challenging part of helping Aaron. Another challenging part about helping Aaron is trying to explain to other people that there is a difference between bad behavior and a meltdown. Aaron and autistic children are not bad kids or misbehave on purpose. They just process things differently.
How do you think people could be more accepting of kids with autism?
Just understand that autistic kids are on a spectrum. Some are higher functioning than others, and each child is unique in their processing abilities and what they can and can't handle.
People often judge neurodivergent individuals by society's standards of what success looks like and what a good person or employee should be like, but there's a famous quote from an educational allegory published in the Journal of Education that discourages judging everyone based off of one or multiple inflexible standards to determine skill level or measure talent. Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish based off of its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So the next time you see someone being weird, or maybe just a little bit different, remember, they are beautiful human beings just like everyone else, and deserve to have a fair say in our fine society.